Okay, let us proceed with our session today. All of you are able to hear me? Gopi? Okay, in today's session, what we are going to discuss is the basic licensing concept of Hana. So that's very important for us to understand because any deployment scenario, doesn't matter whatever the scenario is, we can use Hana for different purposes. We can use it as native Hana, we can use it for BW on Hana, ERP on Hana, so many solutions we have, but irrespective of that, when you're looking for, say, implementation in the organization, implementation of SAP HANA in the organization, the first thing what we have to do is, we need to go to SAP and take license from SAP. So what kind of options we have? If I take a license from SAP, what kind of software components SAP provides? So if you have a basic understanding of this, this will give you an idea for you to understand the implementation landscapes easily. So whatever the software components you come across in organizations, those things you can understand very easily. So let us discuss about that today. So as we know, as of now, the HANA version available for you is HANA 1.0 with the support package stack 09. So that's the latest version what you get from SAP. Okay, when I say SPS09, so meaning of that is already there will be so many support package stacks. SPS stands for support package stack. So version is still 1.0 only. So if you want to have a brief history of these support package stacks, what they have released, actually the first general availability started with HANA 1.0 SPS 03. So this was the first general availability of HANA. This they have introduced in November 2011. So earlier to that we have some ramp up phase for a few months. So that's why general availability started with the support package stack 03. So there onwards it became a tradition for SAP to release a new support package stacks almost every 6 months. Almost every 6 months. So every support package stack you will have some enhancement for the existing features and there may be some new features also. Depends. So every time whenever they come up with a new support package stack, a new document will be released for what's new. So you can go and check the documents. Now suppose if you go and check what you have in SPS 09, in that what's new document in help.sap.com, you can find whatever the enhancements they did, new features they introduced in the previous versions also. Okay. Anyhow, while you are working I'll tell you in which areas they did enhancements, what new features they've introduced, in which support package stack they've did and all. So actually this SPS05 onwards only they started supporting this business suite on Hana, right from the December 2012. And then around in June 13, this is SPS07 onwards they started giving more better features for administration activities. This will be helpful for you tomorrow when you project your experiences. Be careful. Even if you particularly mention about support package stacks. Almost end of November they have released support package stack 09. Actually in every support package stack there will be something called revisions. Now SPS 09 started with revision 90. And after that, exactly 1 month later, they've released revision 91 already. Okay, so most probably in the month of May or June, you can expect next support package stack. But what we are expecting is, slowly SAP may release or come up with HANA 2.0. Anyhow, that we'll get to know once SAP releases it. See, now when we go to SAP, when we try to take a license from SAP, remember SAP is providing 2 editions of HANA. SAP is providing 2 different HANA editions. One is called SAP HANA Platform Edition. And second one is SAP HANA Enterprise Edition. So those are the 2 editions of HANA provided by SAP. Depending on our deployment requirements, we can design which edition we want. Or depending on the solution we are looking for. So what's the difference you have between these 2? What components they provide? So that we'll see. So part of this platform edition, which is we can say the most basic edition of HANA, what SAP is doing is they're providing all the core components. So when I say the core components, meaning of that is the components which are mandatory to have SAP HANA implementations in your company. The basic core components. So in that the first one is HANA database. HANA database server is provided to you. HANA DB server. So when we say HANA database server, a couple of important things. If you want to run a HANA database server in your company, the first thing what we need is we need an appliance. So we need an appliance on which we can run this HANA database. Because we know that HANA we cannot run on the normal hardware. We need some exclusively designed and manufactured hardware by certified hardware vendors. So those certified hardware vendors can be IBM, Dell, HP, Cisco, Fujitsu, Hitachi, NEC, any of these companies. There's no restriction, you can go to any of these hardware vendors. But we have to go to only certified hardware vendors. So we need to procure that hardware machine on which we can run HANA database server. So that's the first prerequisite if you want to run a HANA database server in your company. But when we are looking for the appliance, when we go to the hardware vendors, the first question they'll ask you is what configuration you're looking for. So we need to tell them our requirements, saying that this is what I want, this configuration server I need. I need a 1 TB machine, 1 TB RAM machine, or 2 TB RAM machine. All those details we need to provide to them. So generally there will be doubt for most of the people. How do you identify the hardware requirements of the company? Actually, identifying the hardware requirements of a company is the responsibility of the administrators. You know, those HANA DB administrators or basis consultants. They can perform this process called sizing. Sizing is basically a process of identifying the hardware requirements of a company. And to perform this sizing, SAP is providing a tool for you called Quick Sizer. Quick Sizer. So whenever you take a license from SAP for any of the products, this Quick Sizer tool is available for you. It's an online tool. Once you are authenticated, you can access those tools. And you have an exclusive HANA version. So you can go to Quick Sizer, we can give the basic inputs, what it's asking for, and perform the sizing. And what are the sizing results we have? We have to give those sizing results to these hardware vendors. So I'll tell you simple calculations. I mean, we are not the people responsible for sizing, but just for information. Sizing is done something like this. Suppose I want to use HANA as a warehousing solution. We call it as native HANA or standalone HANA. So when you want to use HANA as a warehousing solution, meaning of that is what we do in warehousing solutions. In warehousing solutions, we store the data. And then we perform analysis of the data. The data which we are speaking about here comes from different sources. There may be different sources in the company. We don't know what other sources are. So we may have to get the data from multiple sources and store the data in a HANA database. So obviously storage in HANA is memory. So that is very critical for sizing. Identifying that memory requirement is very, very critical. Actually, based on that memory requirement only, they decide the size categories. So, first thing what you have to do there is you need to identify what is the volume of data we want to store in HANA. So, you know, already we have data in the source systems, maybe in an ERP system or a file or a database. Identify that volume of data we have. So we call it as source data footprint. Source data footprint. Suppose assume that they have some 700 GB data which they want to store into HANA database. This 700 GB data, when you want to store into the HANA database for analysis, in HANA, in memory, there is some specialized storage mechanisms available. They have a specialized storage called columnar storage. Generally, in any RDBMS product, we store the data row-wise. But here in SAP HANA, we have a facility of storing the data column-wise. There are a couple of advantages we have with that columnar storage. One is more data compression. And second one is a better read performance. So that is the reason why whenever you speak about analysis, all this data which we are going to use for analysis will be storing in column store tables only. So where we can expect a huge data compression. So the minimum data compression issued by SAP is 7 times. Minimum data compression issued by SAP for in-memory is columnar storage is 7 times. So what's the meaning of that? Yeah, Rajesh.
No, 7 times more means when you compare to compression.
When your voice is not clear, type the message. Do one thing when if you have any doubts in between, type the message because this session I am recording it. So tomorrow when you play the recording, there will be a disturbance for you. Type the messages and respond to them.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So the 700 GB of data, if I move into the HANA database in memory, when we are saying a minimum data compression possible is 7 times. So ultimately once I move the data, it comes down to 100 GB in HANA. So my memory requirement is only 100 GB. I don't need 700 GB of memory for storing 700 GB of data. That's one advantage we have with HANA in memory storage. I mean, it depends on the deployment scenario. You can't expect the same if you run some applications on HANA. Suppose if a company want to run BW on HANA. If you run BW on HANA, the same kind of compression you can't expect because there some significant number of tables will be there as row store tables. So you can't expect that much of compression. So there they'll assure you minimum 4 times. It can be more definitely, but the minimum. But this 100 GB what we are speaking about here, 100 GB RAM is sufficient for storing the data which already we have in the company. So in the technical terminology they call it as static memory. That's almost fixed. But what about the data they are going to get from there onwards? They do some new transactions, they make some changes. So what about the new data that we need to accommodate in HANA? And apart from this, there will be a lot of processing. Processing is also done in the memory. So that's why they have a concept called dynamic memory. The simple calculations what they follow for dynamic memory is the same amount of memory, whatever they identified static RAM, the same amount of memory they'll allocate for dynamic also. So another 100 GB you add for this. Simply multiply it by 2. So this company requirement will be 200 GB RAM. That's a simple calculation. So which will be useful for storing the existing data they have in the company as well as whatever the data they are going to get in the future for processing purpose also we can utilize this. But you know, we won't get any machines with 200 GB RAM exactly. These HANA appliances are provided with memory blocks of size 128 GB. So you'll get 128, 256, 384, 512 like that. So that's where this concept of size category comes into picture. So the size categories will be just like t-shirt sizes, that small, medium, large, extra large. Similarly, they have some standard t-shirt sizes. So once it comes under a specific size category, they'll recommend so and so configuration. Similarly, when you're speaking about disk requirement is 4 times of RAM. Because even though we speak about storing the data in the memory here, we need to have a persistent storage. A copy of this data is also stored in the hard drive. So in the hard drive, data is not stored in the format what you see in the memories. That's why they need higher capacity hard drives. So 4 times of RAM is the requirement of disk. So if you have 200 GB, you'll be needing 800 GB. So if they are going with the 256 GB memory configurations, they'll go with 1 TB hard drive. Then when it comes to processor requirement will be depending on the number of users access this database. Because processing depends on the number of users. So general simple calculations what they give is 0.5 cores per user. That multi-core processors. So half a core per user they will give. Suppose there is a 100 user company, 100 people are connecting to Hana database. So you need at least a 50 core processor minimum. A standard recommendation. So like this, once they do the sizing, all these inputs, if they provide the quick sizer tool can do the calculations and results it will give in the form of that size categories. Those results we need to send to these hardware vendors. And based on that, they'll give you an appliance. Anyhow, before going to any vendor, you can check the benchmark standards. So SAP has already tested different appliances provided by different vendors. So you can check the benchmark standards in help.sap.com and you can go ahead with any of these vendors. The pricing is also another factor which they'll consider. So just for information, if you are looking for a 512 GB RAM machine with a 40 core processor with a 2 TB hard drive, will cost you somewhere about 47,000 US dollars. That's IBM machine. Okay. Now fine, we go with one of these vendors, we purchase the appliance is ready. The next thing is we need to have SAP HANA installed. But if you want to install SAP HANA on that particular appliance, we need to have an operating system. So when it comes to operating system, this is also important to remember. HANA database we can run only on Linux operating system. HANA database we can run only on Linux operating system, the server we are speaking about. So that too, that Linux earlier they used to support only the SUSE Linux Enterprise Server, SLES. But from Sp09 onwards, if you want, you can use the Red Hat Linux also. SUSE Linux Enterprise Server is supported right from the first version of HANA. Now Red Hat Enterprise Linux also they are supporting only from Sp09. No other operating system is supported for database server. Okay, so this is another important thing. So here is a point. Earlier, till SPS 05, hardware vendors, only the hardware vendors are allowed to do these installations. The customer himself cannot do the installation. Only hardware vendors are allowed to do the installations. So once you go to a hardware vendor, they'll provide that appliance and they'll install this operating system and they'll install the Hana database server, and then that appliance with the Hana database server will be delivered to you. That's how it used to be. But SPS 6 onwards, it's changed. There is some specific reason behind that. See, people have started questioning the pricing of appliance. Particularly when it comes to the storage disk. Whatever the disk storage they are using, that is pretty much same storage what we use in the companies. There's nothing special about it. Then some customers have started questioning, why can't we use the storage we have in our own companies? Why can't we use the storage which we have in our data centers? There's a difference, cost difference. When I told you that configuration, 512 GB RAM with 40 core processor, with the disk if it's costing 47,000 USD, without storage it will cost you only 37,000. So that 10,000 difference is there. So companies have started questioning, we can save that if they give an option of using their own storages. That's why SPS 06 onwards, the flexibility what SAP has given to the customers is, the customer can decide when he's purchasing an appliance, whether you want to purchase the appliance with storage or without storage. They can decide. Suppose in case if they are purchasing this appliance without storage, then you can't expect the hardware vendors to do installations there. It should be done within the customer's place. Because without disk storage, you cannot do installations. So that's when from SPS 06 onwards, either you can go to the hardware vendor where they can do the installation, or if customer want, he can do the installation on his own. Earlier to that, we don't have that flexibility. And that too in the customer's place also, if installation need to be done, that should be done only by the certified installers. We have separate people who are meant for that installation. There is some certification for that. Only the certified HANA installers can do the installations. Okay, so whatever may be the case, once you have HANA database server in your company, then what next thing? So there are many people who want to connect to the HANA database and work with the HANA database. So there are administrators, there are modeling consultants, there are development consultants. So depending on their roles and responsibilities, they want to perform different activities on that HANA database. But you can't expect all these people working on the server directly. So these people, they'll be working from client workstations. You know, when they're working from a client workstation, what they need basically, they need an interface to connect to the HANA database and work with the HANA database. So what SAP did is, SAP has provided a graphical interface which we can install in the client workstations called HANA Studio. This is the graphical interface which can be used to connect to your HANA database from a client workstation, and that will allow you to perform different activities. Using HANA Studio, we can do administration, any admin activities, like backups, recoveries, configuration, security, user administration, monitorings, all that you can do. We can perform modeling activities. That's what we are going to learn out of this training. So we can build some information models on top of which you can go for reporting, and we can do application development also. So one single tool, many activities, but it all depends on your roles and responsibilities in that implementation, and it all depends on your privileges, which is very, very important. Any activity you want to perform on HANA, you need a privilege for that. Okay, so we know we can't expect that Linux operating systems in client workstations. Generally, client workstations mean mostly it will be Windows. So that's why what SAP did is HANA Studio they have provided for different operating systems. We have HANA Studio available for Windows, we have it for Linux, we have it for Mac OS. For different operating systems they have provided HANA Studio. So seeing HANA Studio on Windows environment, don't assume that HANA is running on Windows. HANA never runs on Windows. HANA server always runs on Linux operating system. Okay, but see when it comes to connecting to the HANA database, how do you connect? Connectivity, if you want to perform, you need some drivers. You know, any database connection happens using drivers only, JDBC, ODBC drivers. We know HANA is also a database. Obviously, when we say HANA is a database, we need drivers to connect to this database. So what SAP did is SAP is providing a small software called HANA Client. So this HANA client is consisting of all those drivers, the JDBC, ODBC, ODBO, whatever the drivers you need to connect to HANA database, all those drivers are provided part of this small software, which you need to install in the client workstation, and that will allow you to connect to the database. For example, you want to use Microsoft Excel as a reporting tool. So if you want to connect to HANA, see this facility is required. So this option comes only when HANA client is installed, not just by installing Microsoft Excel. You get this option only when we install HANA client. Okay, so these are the most important and core components of HANA, without which there's no implementation of HANA at all. But apart from this, there are some optional components also which they will provide in this platform edition. Depending on the company's requirements and interests, they can have this installed. Something like they have application function libraries, smart data access, information composers, HANA interactive education, SAP HANA interactive education, that's for demo purposes and training purposes they can use. So they have some, the live cache applications. So these are all optional things. I mean, if you need them, you can install them, otherwise you can just leave. So each one is having some usage. AFL, they use some built-in functions, ready-made functions you have, which will be helpful in analysis. Smart data access, which they use for nearline storage data access. Outside HANA, they can have data. They can access the data in HANA virtually. That they can do. Information Composer is for business end users who can build their own models, basically views to do reporting. Shine, as I told you, for education purpose, demo purpose. Okay, so, but one thing, if you observe part of this platform edition, we don't have any tools for replicating the data or loading the data from sources. Basically in a warehousing solution, any data warehousing solution, we need some ETL tools. ETL tools, or we call them as replication technologies, but that they don't provide in platform edition, because maybe some companies doesn't need them. Because everyone may not go with HANA as a warehousing solution. They may think about developing applications on HANA like mobile apps or web applications. In such cases, ETL doesn't come into picture. That's why what they did is they have something called HANA Enterprise Edition. Part of this HANA Enterprise Edition, they'll provide you with ETL tools. Remember, HANA Enterprise Edition is an extension for Platform Edition. So when we say extension means what? If I go with Enterprise Edition licensing, whatever you get as a part of the Platform Edition, all the components they'll give you as it is. But along with that, you'll get some additional components like they'll provide you with SAP Data Services. This is one of the ETL tool. Earlier we used to call it as Business Objects Data Services. Another one is SAP LT Replication Server. So these are the couple of ETL tools they'll provide part of this Enterprise Edition license. There is another replication technology called DXE, Direct Extraction Connection. Doesn't need any separate license, doesn't need any software as such. Without any licensing software, we can do it. There's one more replication technology called SRS, Site-Based Replication Server, which they used to provide as a part of something called HANA Enterprise Extended Edition. But HANA Enterprise Extended Edition is only till this SPS 04. After that they stopped it. From SPS 5 onwards they started giving only 2 editions of HANA, Platform and Enterprise. The reason is Site-Based Replication Server, that Site-Based licensing concept is different from normal SAP licensing. So that's why they've excluded this Site-Based Replication Server from HANA licensing. If a customer is interested, he can purchase Site-Based Replication Server separately. You can take a separate license for that, but not part of HANA licensing. That's the difference. So one point you need to know here is they are not providing any reporting tool with HANA licensing. That's another thing you remember. If you want, you can purchase those reporting tools separately. Even if you want to go with something like business objects reporting, you need to take that separately. We can business objects also say there are so many licensing options. So it will be something like this. So I'll show you how it will be. See this service.sap.com software download center. The download catalog. Here you can find SAP in-memory, SAP Hana. Here you can find platform edition. This is the platform edition. They'll provide you a couple of DVDs. So these administrators, they download those DVDs and see, Sp09 is the latest version what we have. So revision 91 they have on 29/12/2014. Revision 90 they started in November itself, November ending. So these DVDs, 2 DVDs they'll download, and once they extract those 2 DVDs, it looks like this. So this is consisting of your database server, client, studio, all that. AFL, LC apps, everything will be there. And in case if you are going with Enterprise Edition, additional components will give you. Additional components are like this. Hana Enterprise additional components, data services and SAP LT replication server. So there will be a number of add-ons depending on our requirements. Add-ons also we can get. Not part of these platform edition or enterprise edition softwares. So as I told you, there is a tool called Quick Sizer which is used by administrators for sizing purpose. Now they have an exclusive version for Hana. So any Hana solutions, Hana based applications or native Hana, anything like that you want to do, you can go with this Hana version and do the size. These are all admin activities. But ultimately, tomorrow when you are going to work, when you are working on an implementation landscape, you should know what SAP is providing, what you have in the landscape, what they are trying to do there. So to understand those landscapes more effectively and easily, this will be helpful for you. This basic knowledge of the licensing concept will be helpful for you. Okay. So based on this, in the next session, tomorrow's session, we are going to discuss about what kind of landscapes they follow, typical landscapes, how they look like, all that will be discussed. So I'm